Still, I want to thank everyone who had good insight, advice, words of understanding, and helped me realize that not only did I make the right call, not jump the gun, and not end things over a small matter, but actually that I should have ended things sooner. It now seems obvious, but when the person I loved and trusted so much looked me in the eyes with that anger and said that I made a mistake, that I gave up so easily for a small matter, that I didn't fight or try to understand, that she just wanted to discuss things, I believed her for a moment. Somehow. Not anymore. Not blaming the people that said this was fake. I'm actually glad some people think that because it means that this shoot was actually so crazy that I totally did not overreact, and I can't believe that I thought I did, even for a second. Love really makes you dumb and blind, I guess. Tried to correct some grammar and stuff. Be well, people. So I know this will be pretty long, but I think some context is needed. We were both in our first serious relationship and our first intimacy partners. We both study medicine, not in the United States, and had an extremely stable relationship, barely any fights, and were both happy and satisfied, or so I thought. A year ago, she mentioned before a trip I was having that if I found someone I could get with them, since it was such an opportunity. That led to a serious discussion where, in summary, I said that I would never want an open relationship, and that if she needed that, we had to go our separate ways. She apologized for jeopardizing the relationship, said it was a dumb thing she said without really thinking about it, and we carried on as usual. Now I know, in hindsight, this was the first big red flag. During our studies, we have to go to a small rural town. Not just the one my girlfriend is in, we are sent all over the place, for 6 weeks where we work in a rural hospital in various services. Those rural practices have kind of a reputation for being very dangerous for relationships, and the doctors over there for being all over the students that arrive. A lot of stories of them hooking up with the new female students and stuff. It's very common, and yes, I agree that it's a problem and it shouldn't be as normalized as it currently is, since there is a power difference, and the behavior is pretty predatory, even though both parties are adults. So my girlfriend went to have her practice, and the first 2 weeks were fine. We saw each other every weekend, and it was as good as it had always been, again. Or so it seemed to me. She then said that she went to have dinner with the hospital doctors, but that she stayed longer with one of them until very late at night talking with him. She told me she knew that looked wrong, and she knew the stories, and she was a little ashamed about it but thought she did nothing wrong since they just talked. I agreed and said she didn't cross any lines yet, but that it indeed looked wrong, and she shouldn't have done that. She then said that he invited her to jog, the two of them alone, the other day, and that she accepted. I told her if she knew the stories and the stigma that those student-doctor relationships have, why would she carry on like this? She said she wanted someone to just hang out, and that if he showed interest in her, it would make things uncomfortable. She would not lead him on and have her guard up. The next day, she tells me they didn't jog because it apparently rained. I told her that I really didn't like that she was playing with fire. She told me I was right and that she reconsidered everything she was doing. Since thinking about it a bit more, she found the doctor attractive and it would be dangerous to carry on. She said his intentions were still not clear, but she would be flattered and feel good with herself if he did try to make a move on her. Since all of this was happening, I brought up what we talked about before about the open relationship. She had some time to think, and when we talked again, she said that it was something that interested her, that she would like to try it someday, that she thought it was something that could work. I said very clearly that I would never agree to that. She said it was fine, and that she would never ask me to open the relationship and that it was just a fantasy she had in her mind. Cut to 4 days later when we see each other again. She says we need to talk. She told me that the doctor was now really hitting on her, and it was clear that he wanted to have intimacy with her, and that she also really wanted to sleep with him. She said the rural practice was the perfect opportunity to try something else and to sleep with someone else. She said she wanted to explore that part of her, and the doctor was the perfect chance to do so. She was attracted to him. She said it wasn't a big deal. She just found him kind of attractive. And that, well, it's very rare for her to receive the attention of another man, so she wanted to explore new things. I said that I thought she was crossing a line, that she constantly moved boundaries, and that my mindset was clear and I would never agree, but your desire was so strong that you felt the need to ask again. She said, fine, then we can just continue the relationship as normal, and I will respect it as I always have and not keep going with the doctor. She said she loved me and was happy with us. The next day we talked again. After our last talk, I was already kind of making up my mind to finally end things, and she again expressed how much she wanted to have intimacy with him and how important it was to her, and that she didn't know when she would have another chance to have intimacy with someone else. Later that day, I went to her house. She was home that weekend and ended the relationship. She was absolutely furious, said I ended things over a stupid matter, that I didn't fight for the relationship, that I couldn't handle her having the hots for another man, that she was willing to fight and not be with the doctor and try to carry on as normal. Basically said I was a jerk and gave up on us for a little matter. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. You didn't end the relationship. She did so by repeatedly telling you she was going to sleep with this dude. Not the idiot, but you should have ended it with her the first time she brought this up. Comment 2. Not the idiot. She wanted to cheat but also keep you as a fallback when Mr. Dr. Dude dropped her for the next cute lady he meets. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, it's been a hectic few days since my last post. First off, thanks for all the support and advice. It really helped me see things more clearly. So after I ended things with my girlfriend, she kept trying to contact me. She sent me a bunch of texts saying how sorry she was and that she made a mistake. She even showed up at my place unannounced, begging me to take her back. I had to be firm and tell her that it was over for good. The next day, I found out from a mutual friend that my ex had actually slept with that doctor before I broke up with her. Apparently, she couldn't resist the temptation and went through with it, even after I made my boundaries clear. That revelation really stung, but it also validated my decision to end things. As I tried to move on, I couldn't help but reflect on our relationship. I started to see all the red flags I had ignored, like how she always needed validation from other guys, even when we were together. Or how she would get jealous if I even talked to another girl, but expected me to be okay with her flirting with other men. I also remembered this one time, early in our relationship, when she got really drunk at a party and made out with some random guy. She swore it meant nothing and begged me to forgive her. I did, but now I realize that was just the beginning of a pattern. Anyway, a couple days after the breakup, I got a call from my ex's best friend. She told me that my ex was a wreck and had been drinking heavily. She said my ex kept saying how much she regretted everything and that she wanted me back. Her friend then asked me if I would consider giving her another chance. I had to think long and hard about that. A part of me still loved her and wanted to believe she could change, but deep down, I knew I couldn't trust her anymore. I had to put my own well-being first. So I told her friend that I appreciated her concern, but that my decision was final. I needed to move on and heal. Her friend understood and said she would try to be there for my ex. It's been tough, but I know I made the right call. I deserve to be with someone who respects me and our relationship, someone I can trust completely. This experience has taught me a lot about myself and what I want in a partner. Anyway, that's the update for now. Thanks again for letting me vent and for all the support. It means a lot. I know I've got a tough road ahead, but I'll get through it one day at a time. Am I the idiot for leaving my wife after she secretly took our daughter to meet her half-brother? When I, a 40-year-old man, was a kid, I was groomed by a cousin who was 11 years older than me. When I was 13, she got pregnant and had a child. It messed me up a lot, as you can imagine. Eventually, she was found out and went to prison for it. The child was taken away from her and placed in foster care/adoption. I was not allowed to have any relationship with the child. My parents and social services forbade it. He is now 26 and has had a very troubled life, I understand, been in and out of prison. I have continued to have no relationship or contact with him. Despite issues in my teens, I turned my life around. I am now married to my wife, who is 45 years old, and we have a 6-year-old daughter together. I have a 19-year-old son from a previous relationship, whom I had sole custody of until I met my wife. She has a 25-year-old daughter from a previous relationship as well. I have had therapy and counseling for everything. We have had a pretty good family unit for a few years. However, 3 years ago, my son found out about what happened to me as a kid and discovered he technically has an older half-brother. He wanted a relationship with him, which was difficult for me. Despite this, I agreed. My wife mainly agreed to be the main support for him and to be behind it all on the condition that A, I have no contact myself, and B, our daughter doesn't hear about it and is kept out of it. My reasoning for the latter is that she is too young to find out, and I don't want to confuse her at such a young age. Additionally, she's a child and we'll talk about it. I don't want anyone to find out about my personal life. My wife agreed, and my son respected my wishes. To my knowledge, it has all been handled well. The 26-year-old got out of prison a couple of years ago, and my son has met him. I thought that after a while, my wife stepped away a bit, as he is now old enough to have contact on his own. I have never said that she would never be told the truth, just that we would tell her when she was older and could understand. Last week, I noticed that my daughter was drawing a picture. I looked at it and asked her about it. She was a bit sheepish and acted like she wasn't supposed to talk about it. I persisted, and she answered me. It was a picture of her family. It included me, her mom, her, my son, her older sister, and her big brother, in her words. I asked her about it, and after more coaxing, she said she sees him with mommy sometimes on their own. I asked her how long this has been going on, and she said since she was little. She mentioned that mommy told her not to talk about it, and not to tell daddy because it would upset me. I reassured her that she's not in trouble and that I'm not upset with her. Later, when my wife got home, I confronted her about it. She admitted that it was true. I asked her how long it has been going on, and she said since my son had contact 3 years ago. She confessed that she had taken my daughter to see him in prison once because she didn't have childcare that day. After he got out, she kept taking her to see him. I asked her who knows, and she admitted that they all know. She, my son, and even my stepdaughter. I was beyond angry, so I packed some things and left the house. I have been staying at an Airbnb since then. My wife, my son, and even my stepdaughter have been trying to call me to talk about it, but I just can't face them. I know I need to go home today, and I'm contemplating it. However, I genuinely feel like I can't stand them all, and I'm thinking of asking for a divorce over it. My wife was the one person in life who I trusted and had my back enough to share everything, and I feel like she has done something on par with what my rapper did. She has betrayed my trust. Despite her continuous apologies, she keeps saying she did it for our daughter and felt sorry for the older boy. Update. I'm going to go home and talk to them all. I miss my kids so much and the dog. I have no idea what will happen. Update 2. I got home and my wife and I had a chat. I've decided I don't want a divorce, but we are going to separate for a bit. She is going to stay with my stepdaughter for a while. We're going to try couples counseling to see where it takes us. I see some suggestions about trying individual therapy again. That is a given, and I'm definitely going again. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot. You set a major boundary, you gave a very valid reason for the boundary, and you were very clear about where the boundary was, and yet she crossed it. That's not something that happens accidentally. Best case scenario, it's disinterest in your wishes. Worst case scenario, she thought she knew better than you and actively dismissed your wishes. In any case, it's clear-cut betrayal, and I don't know how you could come back from this. If you stay with your wife, you can never set a boundary again without having to worry that she will cross it. You are completely in the right if you say that is not a life you want. Comment 2. Not the idiot. Personally, I could never come back from this type of betrayal. To know your history and to have agreed on conditions only to knowingly and repeatedly break them is vile. Not only that, but to tell your young daughter to keep it a secret tells you that she consciously knew she should not be doing it, and she knew it would hurt you, but chose to continue to do so, not to mention the nastiness of involving a young child in the deceit. Such a high-level and frequent violation of trust would be really hard to fix. Now, for the update. Hey everyone! Thanks for reading my update. A lot has happened in the past 2 weeks since my last post. After my wife and I decided to separate, she moved out to stay with my stepdaughter. It was a difficult adjustment for our 6-year-old daughter, who didn't fully understand why mommy wasn't living with us anymore. I did my best to explain the situation in an age-appropriate way, but it was still tough on her. During this time, my son opened up to me about his experiences meeting his half-brother. He shared that he had been struggling with conflicting emotions. On one hand, he was excited to connect with a biological sibling, but on the other hand, he felt guilty for going behind my back and potentially causing me pain. We had a heart-to-heart conversation where I reassured him that I loved him no matter what, and that I understood his desire to know his half-brother. My wife and I started attending couples counseling sessions, which were emotionally draining, but also eye-opening. Through these sessions, I began to understand my wife's perspective a bit more. She expressed deep remorse for betraying my trust, but also shared her maternal instincts to protect and care for all children, including my son's half-brother. While I still felt hurt by her actions, I started to see that her intentions, though misguided, came from a place of love. About a week into our separation, I received a call from my son's half-brother. He had gotten my number from my son and wanted to talk. I was hesitant at first, but I agreed to meet him at a local coffee shop. When I saw him, I was struck by how much he resembled me at that age. We had an emotional conversation where he apologized for the pain his existence had caused me and expressed gratitude for the support my family had shown him. I listened to his story and realized that he too was a victim in all of this. After our meeting, I did a lot of soul-searching. I realized that holding on to my anger and resentment was only hurting myself and my family. I decided to take a leap of faith and start the process of forgiveness. I reached out to my wife and told her that I was ready to work on rebuilding our marriage. She was overjoyed and committed to doing whatever it took to regain my trust. We began to have more open and honest conversations about our feelings and boundaries. We agreed that any decisions regarding my son's half-brother would be made together as a family, with my comfort level being a top priority. We also decided to start slowly introducing the concept of the half-brother to our daughter in an age-appropriate way. It hasn't been easy, but over the past week, I've started to feel a sense of peace and hope for the future. Seeing my wife's genuine efforts to make amends and prioritize our family has been healing for me. We still have a long way to go, but I believe that with continued counseling and open communication, we can come out of this stronger than ever. I want to thank you all for your support and advice throughout this difficult time. It means more to me than you know. I'll keep you updated on our progress, but for now, I'm focusing on taking things one day at a time and cherishing the love and resilience of my family. Thanks again for reading. Am I the idiot for refusing to close the marriage after my husband suggested an open relationship? My husband and I met in college, and we ended up getting married a few years later. 6 years into our marriage, he says he regrets that he never got to really explore the bachelor life since we were together since mid-college. He had 2 partners before me. He is my only partner, and I am perfectly content with that. Not too long after that, he jokingly suggested an open marriage since it is what everyone is doing these days according to him, and my heart sank and I said no. I wondered if I just wasn't hot enough or fun enough in bed, or if he was just getting bored of me. Even though I always give him enough space to himself. I agreed to all his kinks in the past, and I exercise religiously with weightlifting and yoga while eating a very healthy diet, so I am pretty darn fit. I always plan at least 2 date nights a month and always join in on his hobbies when he wants me to, even though I have no interest like race car courses or the range. He was persistent with his request and made me feel bad for not letting him enjoy his youth while he still had it. Eventually, he broke me down, and I begrudgingly agreed on a don't ask, don't tell policy. When it all started, I didn't bother to partake. I just lived life as I did before, except he would go out for more boys' nights out and bars, and I would see dating apps on his phone. I eventually decided to go on dating sites since I was home alone at night more often on Fridays, and I thought I might as well give it a try after my lady friends encouraged me to. Fast forward a few months, and now when I tell my husband I can't keep him company during his hobbies, he starts to get annoyed and wants to know about what I am doing. When I just mention, oh, just a date, he demands more details despite the don't ask, don't tell policy. And as months go by, he gets really mad and decides to close the marriage. I actually met some really charming, nice men who actually seem to appreciate my company and really want to do things I want to do, so I say no, and then the guilt tripping starts again. Now he says he wants a baby, and I should stop this because it won't be good for our future children to grow up with parents doing this sort of stuff. When we got married, he stated he never wanted kids, and I said I did, but I am fine not having them as I would not want to have kids with a man who didn't want them. Am I the idiot for not agreeing to close the marriage and cutting all ties with everyone I met? Edit. I had plans a month or more in advance. He makes plans the night or two before, and he only makes plans for his hobbies. He made me agree that both must consent to closing if we decided to close, just as both must agree beforehand for it to be valid. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. This marriage is over. Find a new guy who appreciates you and doesn't gaslight you about your marriage. Even if you don't leave, don't let him dictate every aspect of your marriage. Close it when you're done. Have a baby when you're ready. Not the jerk. You should have stayed strong and dumped him at the very beginning. Comment 2. Sorry, OP, but your husband is a piece of shoot. He didn't want an open marriage. He wanted his side of the marriage to be open. Tell him to shut his mouth or it's divorce, and then divorce him regardless. You can do better, and he needs the life lesson, not the jerk. Now for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for reading my last post and for all the support and advice. It's been a busy week since then, and I've got some updates to share. So after my husband's constant guilt-tripping about closing the marriage, I finally caved and agreed to cut ties with the guys I'd been seeing. I figured it was the right thing to do for our relationship, even though I really enjoyed their company. I sent them each a message explaining the situation and saying goodbye. But here's where things took a turn. One of the guys, let's call him Mike, didn't take it well. He started blowing up my phone with calls and texts, begging me to reconsider. I tried to be firm but kind, explaining that I needed to focus on my marriage. But Mike wouldn't let up. He even showed up at my work one day, causing a scene in the lobby until security escorted him out. I was so embarrassed and stressed out by the whole thing. I didn't tell my husband at first, not wanting to add to the drama. But of course, he found out anyway. Apparently, Mike had reached out to him too, telling him all sorts of crazy stories about how I'd promised to leave my husband for him and other nonsense. My husband was furious. He accused me of leading Mike on and lying to him about the nature of our relationship. I tried to explain that I'd never made any promises to Mike and that he was just being delusional, but my husband didn't want to hear it. He said he couldn't trust me anymore and that he wanted a divorce. I was devastated. I couldn't believe that after everything we'd been through, he was willing to throw it all away over some crazy guy's lies. I tried to reason with him, but he was adamant. He moved out that same day, leaving me alone in our apartment. As I sat there, surrounded by the remnants of our life together, I started to reflect on our relationship. I realized that even before the open marriage, there had been red flags, like how he'd always prioritize his hobbies over spending time with me, or how he'd dismiss my feelings whenever I tried to talk to him about something that was bothering me. I thought back to our college days, when we first got together. I remembered how he'd pursued me relentlessly, even though I'd told him I wasn't interested at first. He'd worn me down with grand gestures and promises of forever, until I finally gave in. But looking back, I realized that he'd never really taken the time to get to know the real me. He'd fallen in love with the idea of me, but not the actual person. And now, here I was, picking up the pieces of my life while he got to walk away scot-free. It didn't seem fair, but I knew I had to be strong. I had to focus on myself and my own happiness instead of trying to please someone who clearly didn't appreciate me. So that's where things stand now. I'm taking things one day at a time, trying to heal and move forward. It's not easy, but I know I'll get through it. Thanks again for all your support and kind words. It means more than you know. If you liked this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day!